Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, founder of Between the Covers Coaching, and I do a lot of work helping people overcome these habits and hang-ups that are preventing them from being the best people that they can be. And while I am working with clients, one of the things that I often try and do is encourage them to try new things. And this is something that I try and incorporate in my life quite regularly. Sometimes for me, it can just be trying out a new video game because I do love to play my video games. And I've just started playing one over this last weekend called My Friendly Neighborhood, and it's been a very interesting one because it's kind of like Resident Evil in first person, but the stakes are so much lower and it's not nearly as frightening. So I have been getting a lot of enjoyment out of this game. Sometimes it can be trying out like a different movie where I would not have been the person to go see the Barbie movie when it was in theaters. And yet I went with Libby and our friends John and Dan, and we had a great time. And I did thoroughly enjoy that film. Sometimes it can be getting into a new hobby, or even just taking a different way home than the usual way that you take. I forget the name of the actor who said this, but in an interview there was a Hollywood actor that said every single time that they drove home, they always took a different way, so they were not taking the same route consistently. And what brought this topic to mind is this last week, Libby and I went to Victoria, British Columbia with our friends Katie and Brandon. And we had a lot of fun while we were up there. It was honestly the first time I'd ever left the country. First time that I can remember leaving the country. I think when I was about a year old, I might have been to Canada, but yeah, for me that doesn't count because I have no memory of that whatsoever. So we went to Victoria. We drove from southeastern Washington all the way to the other end of the state in, I think it was Port Angeles. And we needed to be there by 1 or 1:30 so that we did not miss the afternoon ferry that we had to be there for a reservation to take the car on the ferry at like 2:30, I think it was. One of the things that we've decided is when we do this again, because we all loved it so much, we want to go back and we'd love to take the rest of our friends with us, is we are not going to have that long of a drive, and we're actually going to go up the night before, spend the night in a hotel so we can catch the morning ferry, and that means that we can have some more time to enjoy our vacation instead of spending the majority of a day just driving and commuting. And while we were in Victoria, we did a lot of new things. There were so many different stores for us to visit. There were a lot of different parks. Oh man, we went to their Beacon Hill park that was actually pretty close to our hotel, and it was just like a 5-minute walk from the legislative building. And wow, we saw just so much beauty while we were there. And Libby and Katie and Brandon were just enjoying the flowers and taking pictures of them and trying to figure out what they are. And that's all well and good. And for me, I was much more interested in the wildlife. We saw so many squirrels, so many geese, so many ducks. And then we went by this one pond, and there were 13 turtles on top of a log just sunning themselves. We saw some heron that, wow, I did not realize how big those birds can get and how loud they can be also. There were some of them fighting over making nests and just getting in each other's ways. And after we'd been there for maybe a half an hour, Brandon and I were the only ones there, as Libby and Katie wanted to go back to the hotel. And we saw peacocks, and we got to see one of the males putting on its full display to try and impress a female. And these animals came so close to us in some instances. There was a female that walked within like 2 feet of Brandon. It was just incredible. And we also saw some deer that were out grazing when we were making our way to go watch Kiki's delivery service at the IMAX. It was a lot of fun. And while we were trying all of these new things, there were some things that I just really am taking away with me. Just kind of about how our lives work and how we interact with each other. The biggest thing that we did that was brand new for me is we went to a 3 Days Grace concert. If you're not familiar with the 3 Days Grace, it's a metal band. And I have enjoyed some metal music. I mostly I have one album from Sabaton, and that is the metal group that just the metal album that I have enjoyed. Yet, for my friend Brandon, 3 Days Grace is one of his favorite bands. And I know that there tends to be a stigma that is on display so often when we are going to these kind of concerts. Yes, in Canada, if there were one thing that I would complain about my time in Canada, is there was so much smoking in public. You couldn't go anywhere without running into someone else's cigarette smoke and marijuana smoke as well. And there's a stigma that comes up with people who enjoy this kind of music, that they are somehow societal delinquents, I guess. They dress very provocatively. They are maybe even goth, or I guess punk would probably go to like punk music. But when you think of people who would go to a metal concert, you're right for some of the people. Because my friend Brandon and Katie, they did not fit the bill of what I would typically have associated with individuals that would attend a metal concert. The people sitting next to me, in fact, I think the guy sitting next to me might have even been older than me. If not, he was pretty close to my age. He was dressed in a nice polo and some jeans. There was a duo on the next row in front of us that looked like it was a mother and her teenage daughter. And the two of them, they were just enjoying the experience. They were singing along. And yeah, there were a lot of people that had like a lot of ripped jeans or wearing a lot of black, maybe even had like some chains and that kind of stuff. But it was a really decent mix of a lot of different people. For some of these experiences, it's going to be worthwhile to prepare in advance. I am not much of a concert goer, and the main reason why is because I like to be in control of the volume, and most concerts are just way too loud for me that they actually physically hurt my ears. And most concerts are a very uncomfortable experience for me. In preparation for this, we got loops, and this podcast is not sponsored by loops by any means. Yet it's something that has really helped my friends when they are experiencing sounds that are just overwhelming to them, or even sounds that they just do not like or enjoy hearing. So we got these kind of noise canceling earbuds that the purpose of them is to block certain frequencies, and the bass at this concert vibrated me to the bone. And I actually experienced a little cognitive dissonance because my brain is like, the body is having this very deep vibration from the bass that in the past has typically been associated with something that is very painful to the ears. And yet that wasn't happening in this situation. It was, my brain didn't know what to do with that. And it made for a much more enjoyable experience for me. And I'm not saying that when you try these kind of experiences that you're not going to be a fish out of water. I mean, here we are at a metal concert that started at 7:30, I think was when the opening band came out. Finger 11 was the opener. And by 9 o'clock, with all of this loud music and all of this singing along and screaming and everything going on at this concert, I was the old guy that at 9 o'clock was yawning. Definitely, it wasn't my cup of tea. I was absolutely a fish out of water in that situation. And all of that being said, I was able to still enjoy the experience by finding enjoyment in how Brandon was just jumping up and joining into it was almost like a spiritual experience in a lot of ways. There is something about music that just brings people together. In fact, we could even say that's one of the reasons why almost every single religious practice has some form of music and singing involved with it. There were times that Brandon stood up from his seat and his legs are bouncing, he's turning back and forth, and he's got one hand up in the air, just reaching out into the ether. And there were a lot of people around us who were doing the same thing. And this was something that I hadn't really experienced since the last time I was in church, really. The last time I was at one of the evangelical churches that I went to. It was, in a lot of ways, a spiritual experience for these people. This band united so many people with so many different life experiences, and some of these songs really spoke to people in incredible ways. In fact, there is a song from 3 Days Grace that I want to actually try listening to again. So I can focus more on the lyrics because it's one that has absolutely helped so many people come out of dark situations. And even when you're trying these new experiences, you might need to decompress afterwards. I definitely needed to. My body didn't know what to do with this energy from the music, from the bass, from the environment around us in that moment. And you can give yourself the time to do that. You can give yourself the time and the space in order to take care of yourself if you find some of these new things that you are trying your hand at can kind of leave you with a little stress, maybe even a little anxiety. The very first night that we were in Victoria, we went to an interactive gaming shop where you could buy like cards and board games, but you could also pay just a flat fee of 750 Canadian, and you could spend as much time as you wanted there just playing some of the games that they had. And you could get some food, there were a lot of drinks, and oh man, I mean, we had so much fun. We played some Wavelength, we played Hues and Cues. The last day that we were there, we decided to end our trip in Victoria the same way that it started, at this gaming shop. And that last day we played Flip 7, and we had so much fun playing these games. And they also had this fun experience called Roll for the Galaxy, where you were given a d20 and you rolled it, and whatever number came up determined the kind of shot that you were getting. And I forget the name of the first one I had. It had something to do with mustache and possibly even cream. It was a butterscotch flavored shot, and it was very, very tasty. And then the second one I got was called First Australia, Then the World. They had fun with these names, and it was Bailey's and creme de menthe shot, and it was very good. We just enjoyed our time playing games, enjoying some of these drinks. The last night that we were there, we're gonna roll for the Galaxy again. Oh man, I did not roll anything higher than a 2. And that is to say that I rolled twice and I got a 2 and then a 1. The 2 was called the Pickleback Gammon, and it was a shot of Jameson whiskey followed by a chaser of dill pickle juice. And it was a shot that Katie had the first night that we were there, and she was really surprised at actually how good that combination was. Because as soon as the Jameson went down your throat and you just had like the remnants of it on your tongue, and you followed that up with the dill pickle juice, it almost tasted like you were drinking a hamburger, of all things. And so I ended up getting the pickleback gammon, and it was a surprisingly enjoyable experience. The last beverage, the last shot that I had was not so much, because I rolled a 1, and this was known as the table flip, because it's a part of gaming nomenclature that if you're playing and things are going poorly, people will get so mad that they will actually flip tables, or they'll flip game boards just out of their frustration. Now, this was not an enjoyable experience, because it was a shot of tequila with some Tabasco. Now, I have yet to try tequila that I have liked. I have been told that the reason why I don't like margaritas is because they don't use good tequila. According to my tongue, there has never been a good tequila, whether it is a cheaper version or it's a more expensive one. I just don't like it. So for that one, I just took the shot and had this disgusting tasting tequila on my tongue. And then as soon as that started to subside, there was the burn from the Tabasco. And of course, Libby had to get pictures of me doing this, and everyone had to stop what they were doing at our table in order to watch me experience the table flip. And even though that wasn't as enjoyable, being in the company of these people and just knowing that this was what I was getting myself into, it was great. We had so much fun. Something else that we saw that I don't know why. Well, maybe I know why, but it's like, why doesn't the US do this thing where when we went to the IMAX, when we went to the arena for the 3 Days Grace concert, when we went to this gaming shop, you could just purchase candy. And at the gaming shop, it was like a cup of candy. At the IMAX, there was a plastic tub that had a lid on it that had some candy in it. And this was just a mix of different kind of gummy candy. The reason why we don't do this in the US, if I had to hazard a guess, is because we are so much more strict about making sure that everything is in its original packaging, that there's no way that it's been tampered with or anything like that. But I found myself really enjoying these. I mean, God, at the IMAX, it was just like $2.50 to get a little container of this gummy candy mix of sweet and sour, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So while we are trying these new experiences, they don't always have to be things that break the bank. In fact, Libby and I would not have been able to enjoy the time that we had in Victoria had it not been because of her family, because they gave us early birthday gifts in some money and said, "We want you to have the best time that you possibly can up there." And I'm so grateful to Libby's parents and her brother and his family, because they really did help us to have a phenomenal experience for the first time that I'd ever been to Canada. Second time Libby had ever been since she was like, what, 8 years old, 5 years old? When you're doing these experiences, when you're trying these new things in life, they don't have to break the bank. My friend Ben has really wanted me to get into Magic the Gathering, and he helped me with getting a deck, effectively like a it was a pre-release party that we went to, and I got a box of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Magic cards, and he helped me with building up a deck. And I believe I've already shared this before, I didn't realize I was being signed up to participate in a tournament. So it was, if you can't, you better hope that you don't sink and you can swim instead. I have another friend who is a cashier at one of the local grocery stores here, the one that I frequent like every week. He has also been interested in me getting into Magic the Gathering. And he and I worked it out that we were going to get together and go to this gaming store where I participated in a tournament. I played against an opponent, and then it was late enough where it's like, I gotta go home. I'm so tired. We went to the same place. We didn't need to pay anything to sit at one of the tables. They had mats that you could borrow, they had energy cards that you could borrow, and we sat there and as I was learning the ropes of how to play Commander, someone else comes over and it's like, hey, are you guys playing Commander? Can I join you? And when we were getting towards the end of the very first game we were playing, someone else came over and it's like, hey, can I join you guys in the next one? Because Commander, like, apparently, ideally, you have 4 players. And I borrowed a deck from my friend Louie because I don't have a Commander deck. I was thinking maybe I'd pick one up while I was there, and Ben discouraged me from doing that because he recommends that I figure out what kind of play style best suits me and then get a deck that is more aligned with that play style. They came out with a set of Final Fantasy Magic cards, and there's 4 different commander decks, and all 4 of them play differently. That's how complex this can be. But I was able to just take an afternoon and hang out with one of my friends, and the other people that joined us, they were so accepting of me being the newbie, of me being the one that would have to ask a lot of questions and do things wrong, and they would need to correct me. And it was actually a pretty enjoyable time. These things do not need to break the bank. One of the things that Libby and I will do sometimes is we'll just head over to a local dollar store and just kind of see what's there. Well, while we were in Victoria, we discovered Dollarama. And like Victoria did have its own Dollar Tree, but we were more interested to see what Dollarama had. Wow, did we find a lot of snacks. Some of them are still sitting on the dining room table waiting for us to take and share with our friends the next time we play Storm King's Thunder. And we had fun just kind of going up and down these aisles, seeing what they had, how it differed from what we have here in the States, and just trying out some new things. We did enjoy a lot of food while we were there. We walked a lot. I mean, we went to, it was Craig Daruk Castle, I think, or that's how I've been pronouncing it, Craig Daruk. And we also went to the Bouchard Gardens. We tried a lot of new things. We went to St. Andrew's Cathedral, and it's an amazing structure. And of course, Libby had to go around and take some photos of the icons there because her mom likes to paint icons, and it's like, here, let me show you what's at this cathedral. And it was so fun. These were some things that we could do, well, except for the garden and the castle, because those did have entry fees. But going to Dollarama, walking around and window shopping, going and seeing this cathedral, those were very inexpensive. When we try something new, I mean, if you have the financial stability to do so, yeah, absolutely, try something new and spend some money on it. But if you don't, it doesn't need to be something that breaks the bank. And even some things that are familiar may come across as being a little unfamiliar. Man, when we went to the Bouchard Gardens, Libby wanted to get a mocha while we were there, and I'm like, I don't really want anything to drink here. Oh, they actually have soft serve ice cream. Sure, I'll take a soft serve ice cream cone. Man, they do things differently in Canada. Oh, that soft serve ice cream, it absolutely was not like the fake stuff that we have here. In fact, on our way back, we stopped off at a Dairy Queen for like a late lunch, and I decided to get myself just a milkshake, and as I was sipping on it, I just looked at Libby and I said, I think Canada's ruined me, but in a good way, because it's hard to come back to this. It's hard to come back to a lot of this fake stuff that we have. And it's something that can broaden our community, because when we went to the castle, it's so funny. I was wearing a shirt that has one of the characters from the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night game. And I was even debating, it's like, do I want to wear this? Because most people don't even recognize the character. And we go into the visitor center, and we had to go in, purchase our admittance, and get the wristbands and everything that said, yeah, you can be here. And that was where I met Hope. Now, Hope recognized this character. The first person ever to have recognized Zangetsu on my shirt. And they look at me and they're like, hey, that's Zangetsu. Did you play Bloodstained? And I'm like, oh my god, you're the first person that ever noticed that or like recognized this character. And Hope and I just had this great time connecting over this shared experience. It was so fun. It was like I made a brand new friend while we were there. And Hope, man, they were just an awesome person. Just a phenomenally awesome person. And one thing for us to remember is every hero is thrust into something new. Now, that something new doesn't necessarily have to be something very challenging, maybe even traumatic, because let's face it, in the heroic stories, it's that drama is like what we live for. We want to see these heroes overcome these incredible odds. And even when you are trying something new, when you're going through this very, very human experience of trying out new things, sometimes being pushed to try some new things, it doesn't mean everything is going to go well. There were 3 things that really came up for us on this trip. It started out at 4:30 in the morning. That was when Katie and Brandon were coming to pick us up. And I was going to drive the first leg of the trip. I was going to get us to North Bend. And then Katie was going to switch until we crossed a certain bridge. And then after that, Brandon was going to drive the last leg and get us into Canada. At like 4:45, I get on the highway and a light turns on the dashboard. Katie had just taken this car to get an oil changed and try and get it ready for this trip. And suddenly this came up. Well, we had to immediately pull over. Katie and Brandon had to look at the coolant because the engine was getting too warm. Turns out there was a leak. Effectively, their basin for coolant was completely empty. That was also when we found out that the local Walmart that we were so close to is not a 24-hour one, and we couldn't wait until 6:30 for them to open to see if they had what we needed. But thankfully, we went to a Circle K nearby because it suddenly struck me, it's like, hey, these places are typically designed specifically to help people on road trips. And they happen to have coolant, and that's where we are able to get our breakfast. And then we started the journey. And it was pretty stressful to begin with because of how everything started. And as soon as we were going over the pass, we started seeing some white smoke coming out from the exhaust. And Katie and Brandon, of course, were nervous about it, concerned that there was something else going on. Turns out it was still just coolant. And I think on that trip we had to refill the coolant, Yeah, 3 times. We had to fill it up 3 times to get into Canada. And while we were there, they tried to find a mechanic shop that could help them, and nope, there weren't any that had the availability. Well, that really changed our plans because that car was supposed to be our means of transport and to go explore around Victoria. Well, then it turned into our feet. We just did a lot of walking. The last 2 days, we finally got brave enough to try out the public transport. And once you get over the initial hurdle of, am I getting on the right bus, that actually really helped us out a lot. I'm also not the best sleeper when I'm in a new place. It usually takes me about 3 nights or so to get comfortable enough to actually have a good night's sleep. And that didn't even happen on this trip. Oh man, I was so tired and exhausted, not just from the sleep issues I was having, but all of the walking, all of the exploring that we were doing. It was fun and it was tiring. And it was also a bit of an emotional roller coaster. A lot of that came from anxiety, from Katie and Brandon, and from Libby, with the car problems, with getting through customs. It was an emotional roller coaster. When we try these new things, when we go for these new experiences, it's not always going to be the easiest thing. And we are going to have some bad experiences in the midst of all of it. And that's okay. It's okay for us to have bad experiences. It's okay for us to try new things only to discover that, oh, I really don't like that. Great. That's awesome information to have. You now know that this is not something that you enjoy. Okay, great. You can check that off the list. And I mean, I still think about the time that I went axe throwing for the very first time, had never done it before, and had such a great time doing so. When we are trying these new things, it's important for us to just take what comes our way. And kind of going back to the last episode about control, sometimes the best thing for us to do is just to relinquish control over this time, the experiences, and sometimes that can actually make them more enjoyable. I hope that this has been beneficial. A quick reminder, if you're enjoying this, please like and subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment. Please give this podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes, on Spotify, or wherever it is that you are listening. And if you have any suggestions of people that we can interview for future hero studies, if you have any questions about anything that I have said, you can reach out to me. The email is questions.btcpod@gmail.com, and I am happy to engage with you. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to research some other people that I might not even know about. And we'll talk again with you next week. And until then, live strong for today.